am so excited to announce that I am doing my first in-person retreat in over 2 years. If you have been feeling like your message wants to expand, like your voice that you've been using no longer matches the woman that you've become and the leader that you've become, I want to personally invite you to my in-person retreat, Unscripted. It's a 2-day intimate retreat in Nashville, Tennessee on February 5th and 6th, 2026 for the women who are ready to speak, to write, and lead from their highest identity, not from performance or from pressure. No more over-explaining, no more shrinking, no more sounding like an older version of yourself. This is where your voice and your message and your identity come back into alignment and pure refinement of who you really are and who you are meant to serve. Spots are limited and it is application only, as we want to make sure that that room is just so primed and ready for the work that we're going to be doing. So you can learn all about it and apply by going to juliesolomon.net/unscripted. And if you felt this, you already know, my friend, I can't wait to meet you and see you in that room with me and these incredible other women. Again, that's juliesolomon.net/unscripted. Welcome to Woman of Influence. I'm Julie Solomon, and this is where high-level women come to recalibrate their message, realign their leadership, and rise into the next era of impact. If you're ready to align your visibility with your true authority, if you're called to speak to women at the level you now lead, if you're ready for your business to feel as elevated as the woman running it, this is your space. Because real influence isn't built in the algorithm. It's embodied in your identity. Let's get started. You know those moments where everything that you prayed for starts happening? The money's flowing, clients are aligned, there's space again, and somehow that feels more terrifying than when things weren't working. That is where I have been living lately. There have been so many times these past few months where I've just had to stop, journal, pray, breathe, just to make sure that I didn't sabotage what I had finally built. Because as beautiful as this season has been, my nervous system is still catching up to so many blessings. And that's what happens when your highest self finally starts leading, but your former self is still clinging to the wheel. So lately, I've been asking myself, what does it actually mean to steward my business instead of owning it? When I used to own my business, that meant I was responsible for everything. Every client, every sale, every problem. If something broke, I had to fix it. If someone left, I carried the blame. If the launch flopped, it was on me. Ownership made me the ceiling, and that ceiling was always me. Now, as the steward, the weight just feels different because God is the owner, and I'm just here to take care of what's been entrusted to me. Every idea, every dollar, every client, none of it is mine. It is all God's. And my job is simply to tend to it, to nurture it, to protect the integrity of what God's already given me so that God can trust me with more. Because I've learned this, God will always refine the vessel before the volume comes. So if I want to hold more, I have to first become someone who can carry more. And that, my friends, is stewardship. That's leadership. And that's what we're talking about today. There was a time when I wore busyness like a badge of honor. My working self was addicted to being useful. She said yes to everything because she believed saying no would make her irrelevant. Every yes was just proof that she could handle it. Every late night email was this quiet audition for worthiness. But worthiness doesn't live in overdrive. It lives in peace. And peace doesn't prove, it just is when you allow it to come in. So when I started stewarding instead of striving, something in me just naturally started to soften. And that was when the highest self came online, the one who leads through integrity and clarity and not control. She knows that success built on striving will always demand more striving, but success built on stewardship multiplies because it's not sustained by force, it's sustained by faith. A while back, I had a conversation with a client of mine. She is brilliant, a mom, a fitness entrepreneur, and one of the most driven women that I know. But she was struggling with the very thing that used to define me, overfunctioning. Her results were solid, but she couldn't rest without the guilt. She would say to me, Julie, I feel like my business only moves if I am pushing it. And I said, oh no, I get it. That's how I used to lead too. But pushing is a sign that your working self is in charge, not your highest self that's ready to come to the forefront. So we walked through her entire offer suite together, and we realized she had built containers that depended on her hustle, depended on that proving. Her systems rewarded her for chaos tolerance, not actually the capacity to receive. So together, we rebuilt them, slower, clearer, lighter. And what happened next wasn't just strategic, it was spiritual. She stopped trying to earn ease and started allowing it. She stopped chasing the alignment and started living from it. And I said to her, you know, sometimes God will send you a client to literally mirror what you've already healed or what you're finally ready to heal. And that's what she was for me. A mirror, a reminder of how far I have come from the version of me who used to equate so much of my worth with overworking. Now, the healing after the yes has looked a lot like pausing, and I call this the footwork, because faith without the work is dead. And sometimes that work looks like literal stillness. For me, it's been waking up early, writing, getting quiet before I move, letting the next step truly be revealed in proximity, not panic, not overdrive. And that's where I tend to find God the most, in that pause, because the pause is where I remember I'm the steward, not the source. There have also been outreach calls too. Those little whispers to connect with someone, share a story, or just make a move without the attachment to outcome. Outreach calls have been huge for me. That's also part of the footwork. And what I've learned is that faith is the belief, but footwork is the evidence. And I've realized if I can pause long enough to pray before I post, to breathe before I fix, to ask before I assume, I will always be guided exactly where I am meant to go. We spend so much time trying to fix the picture, but sometimes clarity is just about changing the filter. And I always think of it kind of like Zillow. You filter out what you don't want so you can actually see what you do want. And your business works the same way. If you're only filtering through your former self's fears, scarcity mindset, you're going to keep recreating that reality. But when you filter through your highest self standards, your peace, your faith, your truth, you start attracting the alignment and the people and the experiences that you didn't even know was possible. So here's the question that I ask myself every single week. What would my highest self put in that filter? That one question has literally changed so much of my perspective. You don't have to clean the entire house before the clarity arrives. You just have to open the door. And when you do, the right rooms will always appear. Since making this shift, everything just feels simpler. Not easier, but simpler. For example, my team knows that my standards are now born from this stewardship, not scarcity. My decisions are quieter. I don't need to reach out to 15,000 people to get some kind of fix. And when the old reflex or fix to prove starts to whisper, I remind myself, you get healed as you go. Because the truth is, healing doesn't happen in the breakthrough. It happens in the practice. And worthiness isn't something that you achieve. It is something that you reclaim and you remember. And when you remember, you stop walking into the room to be seen. You walk in to see, to mirror, to model, even through your work. When worthiness becomes your baseline, the boundaries, they don't feel like walls, they start to feel like the windows. And through those windows, you can finally see, you can finally breathe, you can finally create that space that you have been longing for. If this conversation has stirred something in you, if you feel like you've been carrying a former version of yourself out of habit, let this be your invitation to set her down. You don't have to earn the ease. You don't have to audition for worthiness. You just have to remember who is steering. This February, I am hosting something called Unscripted. It is a 2-day retreat here in Nashville, Tennessee for women who are ready to refine how they're seen, refine how they're heard and remembered. We're going to be practicing everything that we talked about today, the messaging, the leadership, the identity, the voice, and how we bring all of that together in alignment so that your business and your being feel like one. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to juliesolomon.net/unscripted. There is a link in the show notes for you too to check it out and apply. Unscripted is the place where your voice and your message and your identity become one. And I can't wait to hold that space with you and to see what unlocks. So until then, just remember, your business isn't a burden to carry. It is your blessing to steward. And when you lead from that truth, you don't chase, you choose. If today's episode served you, don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a woman you know is ready for more. You can now watch every episode every week on Spotify and YouTube and continue to listen on the platform of your choice. And if you want behind-the-scenes updates on business, messaging, leadership, special promos, the first access to what's happening in my business, in my world, I would encourage you to join my weekly email circle at juliesolomon.net/newsletter. That is where all of this goes down that is not normally shared publicly. This is where your next era begins, and I'm so glad that you're here.